Well, hello, hello, hello. Happy Wednesday to you all. Hope you all are having a great week so far. Welcome to Midnight Hatter Live, where we're gonna get back into the Gunpla side of things. You know, it's the weekly variety show where we talk Gundam, video games, tabletop, all that good stuff. But we're gonna get some crafting done today, and fortunately, I've got my amateur EMT Adam Blue on standby. How you doing, Adam?
Hey, doing good. Glad to be here to help support you in your art while I just kind of stand and wish that I could do some of this stuff. But like, I love the trajectory of these Gunpla streams that you've had because it's like it's leading up in a way. Like you've been finding these neat little things to customize, and and it's inspiring me because I got to get a diorama done.
Yeah, that's you and me both. And unfortunately, I think I've got a trajectory where we've got a diorama that I'm working on that this is going to contribute heavily to that. So I'm excited to talk about that. But
Yeah.
first, I think that there's an elephant in the room because you dropped a very spicy video this morning over on Gundam Explained.
Yeah. No,
Oh,
yeah,
go
and it's
ahead.
interesting. Yeah, because this video is a video I've wanted to make for a while, but then it's like, well, this video isn't really for people that are already into Gundam and know Gundam.
Yes.
It's like, but at the same time, it is good for me to kind of take a step back and be like, okay, let's make a video because you never know of someone that's like, oh, I got into Gundam because I found this video that told me how to watch it, and so that was the thing when there's a couple reasons I wanted to make this video. One, it's people that I meet in my daily life, and they're like, "What do you do?" I tell them what I do, but then it's like, "Also, I do YouTube." "Oh, what is it about?" This Japanese IP about robots. It's like, it's
Yeah.
there's no way I can explain it simply
It's
without
difficult to articulate. I've had that same
yeah.
conversation. A lot of my friends are like, "Look, I watch some of your videos and I don't know what the hell you're talking about, but you're very charming when you do it." So just
That's funny. So, yeah, so there's that, and then a lot of times and this happens more often than I thought, not only on Reddit, but TikTok, where I come across people that are like, "Oh, I just discovered Gundam. Oh, I just discovered Gundam." I can't believe how often that occurs still, and I'm like, "Wow, that makes me think, on my channel, I need to have some sort of video for people to stumble upon for people that are new to it and to feel welcome." And so the video, and spoiler alert, I just pretty much say, if you wanna start watching Gundam, start with the original.
start at the
And then
beginning. Go
and
figure.
I kinda left off it's probably, best not to make it complicated, just go in release order.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a good time, and it it's funny because I've seen people where they suggest other shows, and I understand where they're coming from in a
Yeah.
way. Um, on one hand, for instance, the animation, and I call this out in my video how, yeah, I understand some people are gonna see this older animation and be like, "What the heck am I looking at?" I don't
Sure.
watch stuff, and I'm saying, try to just get through it. You will appreciate everything else.
Yeah.
Flip side, though, there's some people are like, "Oh, well, Gundam Unicorn should be watched first," and I'm like, "Well, while, yes, it looks fantastic,
There's so much
there's
you miss.
so much you miss."
Yeah.
Exactly. They're talking about plots in 0079. They're talking about events in Zeta, events in Double Zeta, Char's counterattack.
Yeah.
None of those flashbacks would make any sense if you're watching Gundam.
That's like you said, this conversation comes up on Discord and on Reddit all the time, and I hear people say like, "Well, you should watch them in chronological order of the events as they occur. So you should watch like 0083 before you watch Zeta." And I'm like, that makes sense in theory, but at the end of 0083, spoiler alert, you see like Haman and Bask Om, and they're like looking menacingly like, ah, ha, ha, I love it when a plan comes together. And you're like, who the hell is this guy and why does he have goofy glasses? Like, I don't get it. Well,
Yeah.
because if you haven't watched Zeta, then you don't know who these characters are that they're trying to like tease out and say, yeah,
Release order is making callbacks
exactly.
in the context of its release, not in context of the universe, and so
And looking at
yeah.
chat, Ultronymous is saying that's like saying start Star Wars with Return of the Jedi. And you could make the same video about Star Wars where it's like, well,
Yeah.
okay, do you start with the prequels because they technically that happened
Yeah.
first? No.
Well, you know, it's funny because speaking of Star Wars, I was reading someone that was talking about all the goofy ways they tell people to watch it, and there's this one, I forget what it's called. It's like the slash order or some term to make it seem like it's a bad idea, where they're like, you start with, um I wanna say you skip episode 1 completely. I think you start with Star Wars, you go to Empire, then you go to Revenge of the Sith, or something like that, like, it's, like, purposely out of order, but in a way to make it, like, as if there would be flashbacks or something, which that's neat,
Ah,
but I like that idea in terms of maybe if you're already familiar with a property, then
yeah,
you go back and do some interesting, like you said with Gundam, do the actual chronological order. If you're already familiar with it, it's a lot more,
yeah.
exciting. Yeah.
And, I gotta say, of all of the Gundam content that you've done, my favorite video that you've ever done is Han Solo remembers Kira, and that,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
that smash cut where you've got,
I know.
Princess Leia walking off of the bridge of the Millennium Falcon. I wonder if he cares about anything. And then you just get that wistful look on Harrison Ford's face, and that was well
Yeah,
done,
that's
sir.
the thing, man, like, I feel like art is taking things and kind of recontextualizing a lot of times. I mean, super robot genre was contextualized for Gundam, you know? So,
Yeah,
like, for me, I saw what Rogue One or no, Solo was doing for Han, and I'm like, well, that movie as a whole doesn't have the impact as this edit I could make, where
yeah,
it's just a quick, simple little edit, but you're showing a through line, and the music matters, the cuts, even the look on people's faces, like you're saying.
yeah.
Like, was Han Solo at that point just dialing it in, or was he really, or Harrison Ford, or was he really acting?
It's
Like,
it's a
it
good
worked.
point, like
Yeah.
and Harrison Ford is one of those actors that he almost knows what the scene needs more than the director does sometimes. Um
Oh, yeah.
it's like that legendary story of the I know in Empire Strikes Back is like Han Solo's not the guy to say I love you too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was probably the best ad lib of all time.
Yeah.
Um
Definitely.
but yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned the idea of like creativity and art being taking something that's there and recontextualizing it, recreating it, because that's basically what we're going to be doing here today for Gunpla.
Yep. There you go.
Perfect segue. Um, so I do have a lot of neat little gizmos and gadgets and updates for just things to share that I'm really excited about that I shared yesterday on the supporters only stream. And we've got some progress from the supporters only stream, so I'm looking forward to sharing that as well. But like I said, definitely after the stream, go check out Adam's video on Gundam Explained. Links down in the description below if you haven't, because it is good. And we kind of, even spoilers aside, I think that you touch on like every major entry point into the series, and well
Yeah.
done,
Yeah.
sir.
Thank you.
So let's hop over into the table cam, and obviously you see I've got, my desk is a mess, but
Whose isn't?
the first thing I wanted to share is that my 3D printer is not ruined, despite the fact that I had resin cured on it. um I was actually able to print a prototype of my logo as an action base stand.
That is amazing.
This is so freaking cool. I'm so excited about this for a number of reasons, because this is the type of thing that I would love to offer as like, a supporter perk, or even just like if I were to open up a little, Etsy or Shopify store, who would be interested in having some custom action bases for their Gunpla. And obviously, this is the official Bandai action base stem, and we went ahead and bored a 7 millimeter hole into the
Mm,
logo, which supports a high grade Gunpla.
nice.
So, I mean,
So,
the thing works.
yeah, and man, I also just when it comes to 3D printing, when you see something that's made out of resin, like, it just looks a little bit better, because I guess,
Yeah.
yeah, the resin printing is for that final product look, whereas the stuff that I use, I keep forgetting what it's called with the plastic,
Oh yeah.
it's
The
functional stuff. Yeah.
Right, yeah, that's very good for especially, like, cosplay stuff. I'm
Yeah.
surprised that, that you haven't done a little bit of, like, Mandalorian helmets and thi
I know I see that and I think about it, but it's like, man, having to clean up the 3D printer, get it running again, but when I see what resin does, it's like, man, if I'm putting more effort into 3D printing, I almost feel like I would just go the resin route because that kind of aligns more with what I would print.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, and especially, like, a Gunpla and miniatures and things like that, this
Yeah.
is, like I think it's the right scale, the right details, so it's awesome, and, I mean, even then, I would say that you can also get some better results from, like, pouring resin. So, like, one of the things that I'm talking about doing is, this is a great master mold or like a great, like, hey, here's a, a a template to go off of. But the nice thing about these types of action bases is that it's flat on the back. So I can make a single piece mold instead of making like a two-part mold where we would smash it
Oh,
together and
yeah.
do that. I could basically do pour over resin. If we made the mold like upside down, obviously, and we took all of the detail that we got from our resin print, one of the things that I would do is I'd flip this bad boy over and then we could fill each of the cavities of the parts with different colored resin. So my next
Oh,
experiment is going to be because obviously I'm going to paint this one to be my logo's colors, but how cool would it be if I were to cast the individual parts of the mold in different colored resins and then
color
put
separation.
color separation exactly. So I mean, I think that there's just so many awesome
Yeah.
possibilities with that. And so yeah, definitely drop down in the comments below what logos you would like to see made into action bases because I would love to make like a whole collection of these. I know that they already have like Neo Xeon and the Federation logos.
Hmm.
Ultronimus yesterday brought up the idea of doing like an AUG one, which I have not
Oh,
seen an AUG action base, and Lord knows
that's
I
a
have
good
enough
idea.
Zetas that need support, so
Make something look like a city skyline, but as if you're, like, up high, so all the buildings are really
Oh.
small.
Yeah, you get kind of like that, perspective view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even, like, something that looks like the end of the launch deck, that a
Yeah.
mobile suit would launch off of.
The little
Yeah.
catapult.
Yeah,
See, and
catapult, there you go.
shout out to Zeonic Shadow because this was his idea,
Mm.
and so the next one that I'm working on is actually the Zeeg New York logo, so,
Oh, sweet.
but I don't know if that's gonna be available for purchase. I think that that's probably gotta be something that's exclusive to the Zeeg New York crew, like, those guys yeah.
Yeah.
They gotta
Yeah.
have, like, this is our action base that that
Well, then
only
it makes me think along with everyone's, like, Sieg New York or your specific action bases, what mobile suit would you have on there? Would you get maybe, like, your favorite high grade and maybe customize it, get, like, water slides of your logo or something?
I mean, that would be
Yeah.
that's the next step, I think, would be to, do even just, like, the custom paint scheme, do the gold with the purple and the red, and
Yes. What kit would you do, though, you think? Would it be a Zeta or would it be some sort of
it might be, like, some kind of custom Zeta, if I could make a high grade version of the Gundam Lindworm,
Oh,
like,
yeah,
that would be a cool one.
yeah.
Or like if I've got the Lightning Zeta Gundam, which,
Oh,
again,
that looks cool.
like,
That's Build Fighters, right?
I'm yeah, that's a build fighters kit, but like, you know, I gotta say, as far as like build fighters, I never watched the show that has the Lightning Zeta, but man, that design is freaking sweet. Um,
Yeah, that's a good call. With your colors, yeah, that
yeah. Or Rogue New Type says Rebawu, which I have not
Oh,
built my
yeah,
Rebawu yet. That one is a
that's right.
yeah, that so we'll have to think about that. What I'm gonna have to pose on this guy. Um, so additionally, yesterday I was playing around with some of this handy dandy UV resin. I've never used this stuff before, which is interesting considering it's basically the same stuff that goes into the 3D resin printer. But this it comes like in a little tube and it's got gel that you can cure using a blacklight flashlight. And after applying probably around a gallon of UV resin, I was able to
Wow.
mold this funnel effect part off of the Qubeley that we wired up a few weeks back. Um, I'm really happy with the results on it, honestly.
Yeah. I'm surprised how contrasty it is through the video. It must be very bright in person.
Honestly, it's funny you mention that because in person it looks not as good as it does in the video,
Oh.
which is
Hiding all the
unfortunate.
wrinkles.
But and this is part of the sort of experimentation that we do here is like we also tried to cast some of these EL wires in resin to try and make some beam saber effect parts. I've still not managed to get a good looking prototype out of it. I've got the
Mm,
I've got the mix of resin to color sorted out. So like I can cast the right color parts and I can get them to glow. But the problem is these little EL wire filaments are just they're too bendy and I can't
mm,
get them to stay straight when they're in the resin. So I was thinking, hey, why don't I take them, keep one, straighten it out like between a couple of vice grips, and then cure some UV resin on it to harden it and make it, and then we
yeah.
can cast the colored resin over it. That's we'll see how that goes. I have not started that experiment yet, but there's still a lot of stuff that we can do to improve this. Obviously, I still have it running off of this AA battery pack. And yesterday I showed off that I found this is something pretty nifty. So, standard USB charger charges at 5 volts. These EL wires run off of 3 volts. So, I can't wire this guy up to a AC power source. It has to be run off of these batteries, which I'm not a big fan of batteries. I like to plug things in.
Yeah.
Well, I found on Amazon, this guy was about like 3, $4. This is an adjustable voltage um
Hmm.
AC adapter. So it goes all the way from 3 volts to 12 volts. You use like a coin to adjust it. And so
Wow.
we can turn the voltage down on this guy to 3, plug this in, and then I will be able to power my EL wires off of a just a wall outlet. So the problem there, because there's always a
Yeah.
catch, right? There's like the rub is that like what am I gonna do with this plug? Like can't do anything with this, so I'm gonna have to cut it open and run the wires directly to the lines here. Um, but I didn't want to do that without having some kind of uh, I don't know, emergency off switch so that I don't kill myself.
Yeah.
um, so I was like, well, why don't we take the switch off of some tiny electric
Mm.
tea lights? So here we've got standard little LED tea light. Um, and one of the benefits of this is they're cheap. This was like $3 for a pack of 6 of these little lights. So they're
Let's see.
cheap and we can get some cool uses out of these. Not only am I going to harvest the switch in order to power my EL wires from the AC adapter, but by taking them apart, you can get something like this, which is if I can flick the switch. This is just an LED that is attached to a switch with some wire between it. Now you might be wondering, why would I want something like that? Well, let's say you've got a little high grade scale building here.
Oh. Oh, yeah. That is a
Stick that
great
bad boy
idea.
on and maybe stuff a little polyfill in there, and all of a sudden you have a battle damaged building ready for a diorama.
That's excellent. You know what? I have each of these pieces in my house. I am gonna try to reproduce this after.
Isn't that so? I mean, and that's so. I can hear you guys in the chat already. You're like, dude, you could buy a pack of like 300 LEDs, 900 battery switches, all of these things you could get on like Alibaba for like 39 cents. Well, yes, but you also could harvest these things from around the house and get the same result, right?
Yeah, and I went the other way that you were talking about where I bought, like, in bulk, and I don't know how much work they're still doing this next part, but, there was still, like, a lot of building out everything, like, having to connect the transistors to the LED just to then get it to power, which this seems like that almost skips that step.
Yeah, a little bit. I would say that there's still some work to be done, but and I'll be honest, I am as you might have gauged from the thumbnail of this video, um amateur electrician, which I probably should have said instead of Gundam technician, I should have said Anaheim technician or amateur electrician. So,
Oh,
failure on my
yeah.
part.
Oh,
I
that
boofed it.
no, that's pretty good, though.
But you know, I think that I don't know the proper names, or it's like I know basic electricity, which is enough to kind of fumble my way through it.
Yeah,
Um,
I've learned, especially being a homeowner, so I guess I really haven't learned, but, like, yeah, understanding, like, wattage, amperage, when I guess an AC guy had to come over here to repair something, and then we were talking about, like, the heaters,
oh
and
yeah.
he was telling me, "Oh, from this outlet, this many amps comes out, but only so many amps can be pulled from," and I'm like, "I don't know. Maybe I need to learn this, though. I could cause a fire."
Yeah, I should probably do the same.
Well,
But
we could figure it out together right now.
yeah, what better way to learn than by doing, right? So, fortunately, these little tea lights are remarkably easy to take apart and put back together. So obviously, we took the battery out, which step one, I'm not gonna touch the battery with anything metal. That is like catching light like crazy. I'm gonna put that somewhere else. I like looked at the screen and so we're just going to pop the little plastic case off of the top.
Oh, Lucas
Almost
is
there.
saying it's avionics.
Avionics, there it is.
Gunpla Avionics.
There we go. And so, I mean, this is really all there is in this little. It's amazing when you take these things apart, how simple they turn out to be. So like, I'm gonna pop the battery in there just so you can see what's going on here. So there's a little piece of plastic that touches the side of the battery, and that is what engages the circuit and powers our LED. So all I did with this one is just take the LED off, and instead of having it connected directly to the this is just the standard little LED positive negative leads. Instead of connecting it directly to the battery the way that this one is, I put a couple of wires in between it in order to put some distance between the switch and the actual LED itself. Um,
Hmm.
Now, one of the added benefits, I should have mentioned this before, that so part of the diorama that I'm going to be building with these little LEDs is a small city scene from Hong Kong
Mm.
using our 1/400 scale Psycho Gundam. I'm thinking we're gonna have some scattering megaparticle cannons
Oh,
coming out of the chest. In
yeah.
addition, maybe a couple of buildings on fire and stuff like that. So obviously, having this LED kind of buried into the chest cavity, I'm going to be 3D printing some blast effect parts that are going to help diffuse that light. And then we're just going to bore a hole in the back here and use that backpack to hide the wires for the LED, which,
Ah.
we'll have this switch attached to the side of the diorama, and it will power all of the LEDs on the panel. So,
Oh, that's cool. So, yeah, the backpack, was it hollow? The other side?
so it's not,
Ah,
but
o
I think that if I cut the hole out of the back here, I can hide the hole
okay,
using the backpack.
cool. Oh, very
I'm
nice.
very
Now,
much looking.
well, one thing too is whenever I'm modifying something, it's like, is if I wanted a pristine version again, would I be able to? Like, is that an expensive Psycho Gundam?
Uh, it's about $40.
Okay, that's not bad.
Now
I
that
could
said, I think
I
that
would
what I
definitely
might
do
end
it.
up doing is 3D printing the Psycho Gundam entirely. That way,
Oh,
um,
okay, so you can do whatever you want and
yeah,
have your multiple iterations just in case. Yeah.
there you go. Yeah. And maybe we'll have a little Gundam Mark II on there as well. So yeah, I'm gonna
Oh,
have to 3D print a couple of pieces to that. The buildings themselves, though, I'm going to be using some foam to create those. So I will be making a video of that diorama build. Oh, geez. Probably should have taken the battery out before I start digging around with metal pliers.
Hey, you never know. Could be for an entertaining live stream.
um, but yeah. So again, disassembling this is pretty easy because it's A, all, cheap little plastic parts, and B, it's a really simple construction. So this little plastic bit holds the switch inside of its container. Um, and then the LED itself just sits in this little housing where we um, get this a little closer. So the LED itself sits in this little housing, and the switch has one half of the LED wire coming out of it, and the other half comes down here so that it can touch the positive side of the battery.
And I didn't see, but did you clip the wire or does it sort of come out?
No, it just
Oh,
came out
wow.
all on its own.
Good to know.
Now, speaking of being a homeowner, one of the things you got to look out for is that pesky aluminum wiring that they say is so bad.
Oh, yeah.
um, that said, I'm actually going to be using aluminum wire for our for our circuit here.
So
Um,
what is aluminum wire then? Is it just like where the wire has some aluminum around it
so
or
it's
the
made
aluminum
of
itself?
aluminum. So
Oh,
aluminum actually does conduct electricity almost as well as copper. The problem that you run into with aluminum, and again, tip for you homeowners out there, um, when they are pinched between the connectors at a circuit breaker, for instance, the problem is that aluminum does not handle heat as well as copper does, and it tends to expand and contract. And the
hmm.
reason that that becomes a problem is that when your connections are expanding and contracting, what will happen is like, so, let's say you leave your light on for 6 hours, the aluminum expands and it pushes your connections apart. It
Ah,
might not cause a problem then because, you're still going to have, it's going to be close enough that it will, you know, you'll see like sparks when you mess with it. If it gets too far apart and those sparks come out, that's when you end up setting your house on fire.
wow. So I wonder if aluminum wiring has to do with the time the house was built? Because I can't
Yes.
say I have come across that. My home was built in the '90s, so I don't know.
I think that it's a bigger problem for houses built from the 50s through the 70s.
Ah, okay.
My house was built in like 68. So a
Ah,
lot of aluminum wiring in here,
I see. So have you had
which
to have some repairs done?
fortunately, no, we've
Oh,
been lucky in that
cool.
regard.
Okay.
But
But interesting fact, that's something I did not know.
look at
Hmm.
that. So you
I
learn some
know.
things.
Everything I
um,
learn.
but yeah. So what we have to do with this is, because this is actually coated, um, because it's supposed to be used for like gardening armatures. So it's coated
Mm.
in a green enamel, which is going to prevent it from conducting electricity, which is a good thing because we don't want it to conduct, like, you don't want to be able to touch it and then be electrocuted by it.
Right. I
so
see.
so I'm going to take a little bit of sandpaper and just strip that off of the ends because we are going to be using it to, like I said, conduct a little bit of electricity. Um,
Okay. Yeah, and it's funny, the most again, I've talked about it before, and I think I have pictures up of the Robot Spirits hangar where I added the LED lights and
yeah.
I all that really was, and I had to read diagrams online to learn what to do, but it's like you have a resistor, I think it's called, and then I
Yes.
just got black electrical tape and wrapped it, but I've learned soldering is a better option, a more secure option, I guess,
Yeah.
and it was funny because for the longest time, it's like I couldn't get the lights to light up, and then I could, and then it's like sometimes it's just because the strength of the tape wasn't on correctly, and I feel like there was a better way I could have gone about it. Um, but you
Well,
know.
and I learned yesterday that if you are opposed to soldering, one of the alternative methods you can use to connect your wires and keep them secure is the UV resin. So if you
Oh,
twist the wires together and then apply a dab of UV resin and cure it, I mean, it holds just the same as solder
Interesting.
would. In
Would
fact,
hot glue also work?
I don't know. I mean, I imagine it would.
I'm gonna have to try that. G
Although,
just
the
because
only thing I would worry about with hot glue is that
yeah.
if it gets warm from the electricity coursing
Oh,
through it, it would melt the glue.
good point. I've never soldered before, but I don't mind learning to do it. But I there would be a lot of cool projects I feel like you could get completed with soldering.
Oh, yeah,
I don't
absolutely. Um, so let's see here.
I
We
like how Rogue was saying, when we made that joke about getting shocked, he's like, "What a shocking live stream." It's, like, such an easy yet funny joke.
we I appreciate, hitting that low-hanging fruit because
Yeah. It
someone
keeps
has to.
things
Someone
yeah.
has to be responsible for.
Yeah. Like the ants or the bottom feeders or no.
Um, so yeah, the way that this switch works, like I said, is just it slides back and forth in this little chamber. We can actually, now that we've taken the LED out, we can put that cap back on, which will hold the switch in place. And now, I mean, this is just a plastic switch. We could use this for anything. I could
That's
use
pretty
this,
neat.
for.
Any of your other ones that you have some weird setup for that you wanna have a switch
Yeah,
in place?
exactly. Um,
Hmm,
because all we need is we need a wire that is threaded through here, and all the switch does is move the wire, you know,
in
I guess like
place.
a quarter of an inch. And so whatever you want it to be connected to, you would put it on this side, which is exactly what we are going to do. In fact, I
Interesting.
wonder, I've got a good option to do this with. I mean, we can just, for the sake of the live stream, I'll just pop the battery back in there and we can
Mhm.
use the existing sort of, like, like I did with this one. We're just going to use the existing mechanism that
Right.
powered the LED just to show you guys how this will work. But, going forward, I think um what my finished project is going to be is wiring the AC adapter to this so that I can control the flow of electricity from the wall to my EL wires.
That
But I think
that
it would be a very bad way to end the stream if, like, I got electrocuted and the stream just dies because,
I
like,
know.
the power shorts in my house.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's funny because that's reminding me when I was originally I had a Switch, but with batteries, and like you said, I didn't want batteries, and I ended up getting and I don't know if this was safe. I ended up finding an old USB cable, cutting it, using the end, and then taping it to the wire, and it worked.
Yeah,
I yeah, plugged it into a USB spot, but I don't
yeah.
know if,
It,
it's
I mean, that's really all there is to it. Like, for instance, so with the wireless LED units, those induction rings,
yeah.
those are 5 volts, and so those can be powered by a USB charger because the USB charger just puts out 5 volts. Um,
Ah, okay.
Ironically enough, so does the Nintendo DS charging cable. So if you want to save
Oh,
your iPhone charger, you can use a Nintendo DS charging cable, cut the tips off of that. The advantage that I got from that, as opposed to using a USB cable, is that USB cables also have the two data lines in them. So, for when you're plugging your phone into a computer or something and you want to transfer files, um, charging cables don't have that. They just have the positive and negative. So using a Nintendo DS cable that I had lying around, I was able to get the same effect, but without the two random wires hanging out that aren't doing anything.
that's funny. One of my other top videos on my gaming channel was when I was reviewing a 3DS XL or 3DS power adapter because there was for some reason like you could only charge yeah the DSs I think with like a specific yeah it wasn't it's something specific and then like a third party finally came out with one that charged a 3DS and a DS or something and
Yeah, and
very
actually,
interesting.
that's one of the reasons that I was comfortable getting rid of the DS charger is because I also have a PS Vita, and so having one of those multiple charging cables that's like a third party one
Yeah.
allowed me to have both my DS and my Vita plugged in at the same time.
Yep. Yeah, that's interesting. Interesting.
So, we've stripped off the ends of some of these little gardening wires. And similarly, what we are going to do is run this little guy through the hole where the um, where the LED would normally be sitting. Guy fell out. Put him back through. Now, before we pop the battery back in, we're going to find a way to attach the ends of these back to our LED. This one, of course,
Mm.
being the positive, since they are much stiffer wires than these little flimsy guys that I was working with. I'm sure that I'll be able to just kind of like twist them together
Twist it
and
around.
get that
Yeah, so
same.
one step that I'm not seeing here is the use of resistors. Not that I knew 100% what I was doing, but, like, I couldn't get things to light up, and I read, "Oh, you need a certain amount of resistors based on each LED," but then with the power usage for this, maybe that's not necessary.
Yeah, I think that obviously depending on how much the light is going to be pulling, you would probably want some resistors in order to prevent it from burning itself out because LEDs are famously they'll take whatever you give them. So one of the reasons
Okay.
that it's so easy to burn out an LED is because you can push 12 volts through it and it'll take 12 volts and it'll light up like the sun for about 30 seconds.
Okay,
But since it only needs 3 volts,
I see. So you're
um,
purposely trying to limit it as much as possible, so it could be that you can use higher voltage, but it's just gonna burn out
yeah.
quicker. Okay.
Um, let's see here. I'm gonna use these little alligator clamps to hold this in place. Hopefully this will work. I don't know if I ended up stripping enough enamel off of this wire. It's a little dark where I'm at, and I think that I was doing that intentionally so that all the lights would actually show when I turned them on. But we'll see
Yeah, we'll see.
how it actually works once the place. Oh,
Alright.
whoa,
Ooh,
that's a
look at
good
that.
sign.
Yeah.
So switch it on. Oh, so
Okay,
maybe I
so it's
didn't get
getting there.
yeah, maybe I didn't get enough of the enamel scraped off. Oh, there it is.
Yeah,
Then
it's giving me flashbacks. I remember I was working with those LEDs, it's like I would barely touch it. Some would turn on, some would turn off, barely touch it. Some it's like, "Come on."
exactly. So I'm going to use the actual battery casing to hold the battery down because I think that that's part of our problem here. The battery keeps
Okay.
popping up here. So hold the battery casing down, flip the switch, and there we go. We've got,
Nice.
and like I said, this is a pretty minor customization. Like all we're doing is we're adding wire in between what normally that LED would just be
Yeah.
touching the battery directly. And we're just adding wire in between that in order to create some distance between the switch, the power source, and the LED itself.
That's actually good because now that's just making me think how much easier it would be for me to experiment with LED lighting by getting these instead of what I did. So I'm actually gonna go buy a pack of these and mess with them like that. I love that built-in switch.
Yeah.
Um,
And,
yeah.
and like, how much would you end up paying for like one of those Bandai
Oh,
LED kits that like, is designed for master grades? You're going to end up paying like $10 plus however much in shipping for just
yep.
one LED unit that yes, it's less work, but the value that you're getting out of it definitely not even close.
Yeah, that reminds me, I remember it was either the 2nd or 3rd kit I ever built was the Origin Master Grade, and it has that LED thing, and I forgot if it came with it or I bought it separately, but that was such a neat part when I was building it, I was like, "Wow, this thing has a light in it, like, that is awesome." But, the thing is, I've only had it on maybe a total of 5 minutes in its whole life because I turn on, "Oh, look how neat," and then turn it off to not waste the battery, but I
Yep.
would love to go this route, where easily have some wire poking out the back of the head or
Oh yeah.
whatever, going down the back.
and
I'm
then
gonna
yeah,
have to do
run it
something
to
like
this
that.
guy.
Ah,
So I suppose let's see what happens when we cut this guy open and see what the guts look like.
yeah.
Plus, the added bonuses whenever you have something like this is you end up having these little greebles or whatever you want to call them that you can use in dioramas and stuff like,
Oh, good call.
maybe I'd paint this and set it up as like a little transistor or something somewhere on a
Yeah,
diorama.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it's pretty good. I remember when I used to have boxes and drawers of PC components. And this was mainly, because I've been building PCs since like the late '90s, but like I got to a point where I was throwing out all my extra stuff because it would just pile up. But that's
Yeah.
perfect Gunpla custom fodder.
Oh yeah.
Thinking about it,
I
like you could
think
probably build a whole hangar with PC parts.
pretty much. Uh, I mean, my first custom Gunpla, I ended up taking took the motherboard out of some small electronic thing. I forget what it was. It was
Oh,
probably
like a
like,
radio or something.
yeah, something like that. And
Yeah.
I was just popping parts off of this motherboard and attaching them to the Gundam and like
Oh, that's cool.
and
That's
it looked so
ILM.
much more authentic than like uh, you know,
Yeah. The little plastic parts of it. Yeah, that's and it just to think, everyone knows the story, but that's how they designed the Death Star and Millennium
yeah,
Falcon and all that. By just getting random parts. And
just kit bash it.
um, hey Robert, good to see you. No, I haven't read the story. And then Shirt Lad. Does that mean the colony laser diorama is still a thing?
Oh yeah. Colony
And
laser
so this is
diorama is
like
still a go.
that's right, because I guess the Qubeley part of it.
Yes, this Qubeley is going to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So the next step that I wanted to achieve. So I think I've mentioned that the way that the colony laser diorama is coming together is I've got a tracing table. It's like an LED panel that is a tracing table that is supposed to shine light through paper. And what I've done is create the base of the diorama using that, cover it over with some foam, and then the I used Voss water bottles because
Yeah.
they are that perfect cylindrical shape. Those represent the pillars inside the colony laser. We've got our Qubeley, which is going to have her light up funnel effect parts. We've got the O, which my plan is to do a similar build to this, but obviously, remember we were talking about using the EL wire filaments and creating beam sabers out of them. I
Oh,
was going
right,
to
and
set
because
up
there could be
his crotch mounted beam sabers and have them wired through his body.
yeah,
Um so yeah, I mean the light up components of this diorama are coming together quite nicely.
I think
Um
so. Yeah, yeah, that's this is so yeah, it's all related.
yeah,
All this stuff is really related, and man, it's a huge project.
yeah, it is. And I'm sure that there's probably an easier way to do all of these things, but
I don't know.
come on, it's me.
Yeah,
Uh
experimenting, and I feel like as you're, tackling specific components, that kind of probably helps with understanding how you would do the next component. I'm sure your ideas are changing for how to do the bottle or the whatever the capacitor, whatever that's supposed to be, right? A giant capacitor? That's
I guess so. I'm not sure exactly. Your guess is as good as mine. So we've got again, this is I guess electricity 101. You've got your positive line and your negative line coming out of the AC adapter. These are some serious wires though. I have to say, considering that like so for instance, these little white wires, like angel hair wires that I have wired up in here came from a iPhone charger. So these are straight out of a
wow.
USB. Um, you look at the wires inside of this AC adapter, and they are much thicker gauge, which makes sense because, if it's going to go up to
Yeah,
12 volts, it
true.
probably does need to be a little beefier.
And being that big, I'm sure it's easier to work with.
Oh yeah. Um, I'm sure that I've communicated many times how much I hate the angel hair wires that are inside of these EL these
Oh,
EL
yeah,
wires. They are a phenomenal pain, and they are so easy to break.
Oh, I bet.
Um, so I think I actually probably need a little bit more of the outer casing off.
Unrelated rogue types can't comment for some reason. Yet
What?
the comment came through. He's like, "Oh, it's working, LOL." But I just love how like it doesn't make sense, yet it happened. Oh, and then Shy Guy, as a STEM teacher, I always wanted to design a Gunpla curriculum. That is a great idea. That can cover many different disciplines. I guess when it comes to
Yeah.
planning, um, and if there's any electrical involved with the Gunpla or not.
And again, I would say that it's worth mentioning that I've come from, casting things in epoxy putty to then using pour over resin, now using 3D printers. I've made miniatures that employ the use of magnets.
Yeah, that is
Um, you
sick.
know, basically anything STEM related can be applied to Gunpla. You could even have like different sections of a physics class for each like Gunpla customization.
Oh, yeah, like, would that really work, within the rules of of Gundam or whatever?
Yeah, there you
Um,
go.
hey, so that little mini that you were just showing,
Hmm.
how many have you completed?
How many of these guys?
Yeah,
This is the only
painted
one that
with
I have
magnet.
fully painted, but
Oh,
let me see because I've got my bin of them.
and are these similar they're pretty much what comes from your Patreon, right? Like the prints?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And you
These
just
are
and you are just literally cutting and then, yeah, adding the magnet.
yeah. So here we've got our little bin o' goodies. Um, so this is a ground type Gundam that also has magnetized
Wow.
arms. I started painting him,
Oh,
but never finished him.
that's excellent.
We've got a Zaku 2 that's armed with a Heat Hawk. Um,
Wow.
not one, but two GM commands that I have magnetized up. One with a bullpup rifle and one with a beam saber.
Wow. That is
Yeah, I mean I've
awesome.
got like a little box here full of nothing but Gundam minis. The Mud Rock.
Wow, that looks great.
Yeah,
I guess
these
I
are.
hadn't seen, many of these completed, so, yeah, I was just curious because that Zaku you just showed, man.
Thank you. Yeah, that's I, I'm sad because it's like I'd love to on the Patreon where all of these models are available to
Yeah.
download off of the Patreon. I would love to show off more of the completed builds of them.
Yeah, actually, yeah, because sometimes, like, that what was it that, you were working on? I can't wait, the Advance of Zeta Hyzac?
Oh yeah,
What how far have you gotten with that?
that guy is still currently on the old slab.
Ah,
um,
on hold as we do the colony laser diorama.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I
Which
I accept that trade-off. Yeah.
there you go. Yeah, the one of the downsides of being so severely ADHD as I am is that
Jumping from one thing to
it
another.
makes it very
Yeah.
hard to finish a project before moving on to the next one because I get uh it's like I see, oh hey, that's a shiny object. I need to start building that one.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I have so many Gunpla that I need to do uh, my gloss coat on before I start detailing. It's just like, I gotta bust out everything, and
I know.
it's like,
And
"I'll do it
and
later."
that's a whole other thing is like when you start doing painting and like, airbrushing like you and I have started doing.
Yeah.
um
There's a lot more setup involved where it doesn't have as much as that instant gratification that we would get from other customizing techniques.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And now I did finish my Titans high grade Mark II. I used the water slide decals to trick it out as Kakrakon's Gundam. the
Oh.
unit 2, which it's funny to me because, you know, as
Oh, yeah,
part
that's
of
right.
that build, I found out that like some of the lore of the Gundam Mark II is actually in the high grade kit. Like, you know, technically there was actually 4 Gundam Mark
Yeah.
IIs that were produced. Um,
Yeah,
so
that's right. That is an interesting one.
oh, I suppose what I really need to do. So there we go. We've got our negative side dropped in there. Now, the the thing about these LEDs is that, they've got this stiff wire, and that is what holds it in place. Because this is a flimsy wire, I'm a little concerned that it's going to pop out of our little casing here, right?
Mm.
So, we're going to go ahead and do what I said I did earlier and apply a bit of UV resin to where it is attached, and
Oh,
then
good
that is
idea.
how we're going to hold it in place. Don't need a lot, just like a dab right there.
Very interesting. So I guess N different than hot glue, this just doesn't tend to liquefy or something at high temperatures.
Yeah, once it is cured, it is I mean it
Solid.
gets, yeah, it's as hard as, that 3D printed model over there. It's like they now I will say it becomes brittle. So like
Oh,
it is
okay.
possible to then break it, but you know,
I guess that could be good if you're needing to do repairs or something. You can at least
true. Which
remove it if needed.
similar to soldering, because like then to remove solder, all you would do is use a soldering iron to remelt it.
Ugh, yeah. Yeah, and another thing too, and I'm just my mind's going a million miles an hour here because all this, but, like, I feel like also because of the UV, it's also easy to find or if you're, like, looking for, where you've put things together or something. Yeah, I don't know. That
Yeah,
is a neat little trick.
that I'm going to have that on my headstone. I think is he gave the world a lot of neat little tricks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, these streams don't leave out those little tricks because yeah, there's always something that I've been applying to my
Well,
gunplaying.
and that's uh, one of the many reasons that I love having you on here is not only just because of your Gundam knowledge, because of your video game knowledge, but because it's nice to have someone that asks questions when I'm doing these things so that I
Oh,
know, oh,
true.
that is probably something I need to elaborate on.
Yeah.
Um
I like asking questions.
People would be better off if they did ask more questions, I think. I think everyone tries to
True.
pretend like they have it all figured out, and I think
Yeah,
that gets them in
and it's
trouble.
funny, it's, like, not for themselves, but for the people that they would ask the question to. I remember feeling that when I was especially in my early 20s.
Oh yeah,
It's like I didn't wanna ask a question because then that person would think I would think that person would think I couldn't then handle whatever is going on. Or they'd be like, "Well, why
precisely.
are you asking?"
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to appear to know less than you claim to.
Yeah.
But I think that there's value in being. Um, I think it's Simon Sinek that's like, don't be afraid to be the dumbest person in the room because chances are you're just the only one that's brave enough to ask the question.
Yeah. Yes, so much of that I've learned, especially the perception that someone might know more than you,
Yeah,
when you would be surprised to find out you might know more than them.
facts.
Yeah.
So, I suppose we can dab a little bit of UV resin again, because it would normally be a stiffer wire that's holding it in here. Because it's flimsier, we're going to want to have it attached somehow. So, what I'm actually going to do is pour a little bit of this resin out so that I can dab just the faintest little amount on there. because too much, and I'm not going to be able to use the Switch anymore.
Ah, is that, a toothpick?
Yeah, it is.
The world's
Toothpicks.
most versatile tool. I
Yeah,
painted I painted a Mini entirely with a toothpick.
really.
Yeah.
I mean, between toothpicks and Q-tips, which do you think is more useful for a
Oh,
Gunpla
yeah.
builder?
That's a good point. Those little thin Q-tips are great,
Yes.
but with the toothpick, I found this, like, momentum that I can do at I'm turning it, like, as I have it go across the surface, and it makes, like, it's almost like if it's just a raised area, but it's tiny, and I
Yeah.
don't have a lot of room to work with, I can just quickly go in and do, like, a turn on something, and it, like, stamps the ink right where I want it. I'm like, "Okay, I'm good. I'm
I
good."
think I can correct me if I'm wrong, but the perfect application of this is on the Gundam Mark II, for instance, that has like that little golden V in the groin
Exactly.
that's usually
That's
cast in red plastic. They don't have enough color separation on it. You're like, ah, well, the sticker is too much of a pain to put on there. It doesn't
yeah.
look good because they have to do that thing where they cut like 90 little cuts into the sticker to make it fit around the 3D object. When
Well,
you can
in
just take a toothpick, hit it with a little
it
gold paint.
not only that, but I have also found out that using a Gundam marker, the paint consistency, if you give it a good shake, that paint consistency is always on point. I
Yes,
I was using that for the yellow, and that does better than when I was getting the yellow paint, like the separate paint with a brush, like using
that's
Gundam marker
impressive.
paint. Yeah. So, yeah, I was at the store the other day, and they had some Gundam markers. I just bought them, and it even had a gunmetal,
Oh,
color.
nice.
Yeah, I was like, "That's
Yeah,
excellent."
that's
That just
perfect.
I know, that's just some cool little details you don't necessarily need, but just adding a gunmetal to those pieces that can use it, you know?
Well, here we go. We have
Alright.
successfully uh, welded a switch onto our outlet. Um, God help me when I actually plug this sucker in and try to use it for something.
Make sure to report back.
Yeah, if you don't hear from me for a few weeks, you'll know what happened.
Ah,
Uh,
okay.
no, it's gonna be fine because basically all we're gonna do is we're going to connect it to these wires that take 3 volts, and either they're gonna burn out or it's not gonna be enough to power them.
Right. Yeah, so you should be good. Very neat. Very
So
neat.
yeah, hopefully you guys have gotten a kick out of this little experiment. Like I said, there's so much that you can do with just a little tea light. You get what for 3 4 bucks you get 6 LEDs and 6 little switches that you can take apart and tinker with. Um and I'm getting uses out of them because I'm adding a switch to a AC adapter, and I'm also using the
Yeah.
LEDs for a build. So
Yeah, that is a great idea. I think I'm gonna go that way. In fact, it's a little more streamlined than what I was doing, so for sure, I'm gonna come up with something here shortly.
yeah, you don't have to play with like resistors and
Yeah.
ohms and all that good stuff. The stuff that
Yeah,
I
that's cool.
should know what I'm talking about, but
Yeah.
but yeah, thank you guys so much for hanging out and
Yeah,
for keeping the chat lively. Adam, thank you for helping me out,
of
explaining what we're
course.
doing here, and helping come up with some additional applications for what we can do using all these little tips and tricks, UV resin, LEDs, ELY. Like there's so many different components to what we're doing here that you know,
Yeah, seems scary, but it's not, and it just levels up whatever you're doing. Yeah.
yeah, that's what we do here is it's like I'm just trying to show you guys cheap and convenient ways to level up what you're doing. And hopefully you get some fun out of it. Hopefully you're much safer than I am. But yeah, if you guys haven't checked out that video from this morning, definitely hit the link in the description below. Go check
Oh,
out
yeah.
Adam's video about how to get into Gundam because that's a big one. And yeah, tomorrow we've got the Gundam Explained show, 11 a.m. Central, 12 Eastern.
That
Hope you
is
guys will
correct.
tune in for that one. Adam, do you have any spoilers for us?
Yeah, there's, I think, 99% chance there will be a guest on. They've said yes. It's just another Gundam community person. Very cool. They have a lot of content out there. So,
Awesome.
yeah,
I'm looking forward to it. Well,
that'll be cool.
sweet. Thank you guys so much. Again, have a good rest of your afternoon and evening. Have a good rest of your week. We will catch you tomorrow.
Yep.
Until then, cheers.
Peace out.